What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram, and our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. And today I'm really excited to have our two guests. We have Jeff Poole, the drummer from Legs Diamond, and Michael Prince, the keyboard player and rhythm guitarist from Legs Diamond. And as a kid who grew up in San Antonio, I can tell you that Legs Diamond is etched in my musical memories forever and ever and ever. They were played on the radio constantly by legendary San Antonio DJ Joe the Godfather Anthony. Their concerts were huge events, the kind of thing where I'd gather 20 of my buddies and we'd just make a big party out of it. And they always did well in San Antonio. Always a great show, always a great time. Couldn't be happier to have them on the podcast.
They were one of the bands that San Antonio was a market for them because of, like you said, the late great Joe Anthony.
Yeah.
Who here's a scenario like the first time they come through town, they're an opening band. They're on the bill with, Axe and Ted Nugent and Angel or something like that, and they're first.
Right.
And then like 3 months later, they're still on the road and they're coming back. And this time they're the headliner in a matter of months. Like beginning of summer, they're playing at 6 p.m. At the end of the summer, they're playing at 9 p.m. And that mean, because of Joe Anthony, because of 99.5 Kiss, because of rock fans requesting their songs and them just being a great band and opening the show and blowing people's minds. So
yeah,
I know we've been talking off and on, Dave, just is the reasons why we have a podcast. This is one of the reasons we have a podcast is the story that you just told growing up in San Antonio. It's related to a couple more hours south, me growing up in Corpus Christi. And having friends who had a band, and I was very young, 11 or 12 years old, and I had these. I talked to my mom into letting this band rehearse in our garage at our house. And when they would leave, I would go back there and say, "I'm locking up for y'all. See you next week," or whatever. And I wouldn't lock. I would go in and get on their drums and get on their Marshalls and get on their Les Pauls and play their shit and it was fun. Those were the first like real drums and real like Marshall amps I ever played on were these guys. But anyway, the point is they played all these great cover songs and they played Legs Diamond songs. And so I was like, wow, that's so good. For a second I was like, man, these guys are awesome. They write great songs, and then realized they were a cover band. They covered Stage Fright.
Yeah.
By Legs Diamond. And it was like one of my favorite song, because I would sit back there, are you kidding? I had a free concert every time they practiced. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And little feeble mind, and I was like, who's that? And they were like, it's this band called Legs Diamond, realizing later one of my older brothers had a Legs Diamond record, and the rest is history. They definitely played a part in me realizing that it wasn't really always what's on the radio. It's what, your big brother's record collection, or, the people in a few grades above you who have a band who play this song. They go, oh, what is that? And then it's talking to you. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just really going to be a great episode, getting to talk to these guys who were there changing the way people fell in love with rock and roll, or just continuing that, right?
Yeah.
Ritual.
I think anyone listening to the show who grew up in San Antonio like I did will totally vouch for me that Legs Diamond, they didn't get the national superstardom. They were big stars in San Antonio. They're from Los Angeles, but because of Joe Anthony playing their songs on the radio, off the top of my head, I remember Walk Away, Fugitive, Woman, Stage Fright, Out on Bail, Underworld King, Rat Race. How many songs did I just rattle off the top of my head?
A lot. Satin Peacock is another one that needs to get in there.
And Legs Diamond was all over the radio in San Antonio, and their concerts were a big deal. And I couldn't be happier to have them on the podcast today. I got to give a shout to Harold Harris,
Please.
a mutual friend of ours. He's friends with Legs Diamond and made this possible by putting me in touch with Michael Prince. And yeah, so without further ado, we probably should just get right into it. Michael
No, we could
Prince,
have a whole. Our intro could be as long as an episode.
yeah, because there's so much to talk about with Legs Diamond. But we've got Michael Prince and Jeff Poole with us today, and let's just go ahead and get into it.
Hey, man, it's great to have you guys on the podcast today. Thank you. Today we have Michael and Jeff from the legendary rock and roll band from Los Angeles, California, Legs Diamond.
Legs Diamond.
How the hell are you guys?
Dave, Jason, pleasure to be with you guys. Thanks again for showing the interest and having us on.
Oh, yeah. You know, as someone who grew up in San Antonio, Legs Diamond is embedded in my musical memories. Of course, all the radio hits, and then the concerts were not just concerts, they were events. I remember me and my friends, you made plans to go to a Legs Diamond gig. You gathered as many people together as you could, and you made a big party out of it. And I don't know how you guys did in other markets, but every time you played San Antonio, there was a good sized crowd for a band that we didn't see in Circus Magazine, for example.
I feel like the state of Texas might have been a pocket for you guys. Was that about right?
Yes, it was.
Describe, between like, fuck it, we're going to date each other anyway. Like late 70s on through the 80s when you guys had there were certain markets in the U.S. where you guys had some marginal successes, and in some markets they were even better because you had a radio DJ who loved your music. Where were those other markets besides Texas?
And how did they compare?
Yeah, good.
California to a certain extent, the Detroit area, the East Coast. And one thing that Joe told us Joe Anthony, the last time we talked to him, is his one regret was not telling all his other DJ buddies in different areas how well we were doing in his market. And normally those guys would talk like once a week and say, hey, Kansas's new album is really lighting up the phones here. And this new band is lighting up the phones. But he said, I always wanted to keep you guys as my little secret. And this, I don't know what year he died, but this was probably within 6 months of when he passed away. And he was at a smaller radio station. And I went, damn. It would have been nice if he would have told his friends, because they'll try playing, what the other DJs are successful with.
Yeah, you can't really blame him. I feel like maybe your fans, as well as, we're all fans. Everyone here in the room, we're all fans of something that we're like, this band speaks to me, therefore they are my band, and I shall promote them by walking into a room of rock and roll people, because I can tell by, the smell, that they will love what I love. And you start talking about your band that you are championing, right? And either people jump in or they do not. And that word of mouth thing is how you still, even today with the world today, I feel you still win your fans one at a time. You can do a massive wash on social media, whatever you want. You can throw dollars at a single, at a record, at a tour, at an idea or whatever, and the sheep will probably follow that dollar bill and just take a bite and then, drink the punch and whatever and become whatever it is. But that usually creates fads, unless it's this sort of slow crawl into this giant sort of even cult following or megastardom. Now, no one here in the room knows megastardom, but we can relate on what I just said as fans of something where, like it's a perfect analogy, Joe, saying you guys were my band. And
Yeah.
maybe I should have shared
Yeah.
a little bit more. You know what it was? That was love, Michael. He was trying to tell you he loved you. He was trying
That's
to
true.
tell you something. It's like maybe I could have done more. And maybe I mean, it sounds like a slight bit, I hate to call it guilt, but he was just telling you he loved you.
Well, it's a little bittersweet because we are very grateful for what he did for us. And if there's one place where you could be really popular, San Antonio would be my first pick. The audience is incredible. Rock and roll fans that really truly know what they're want to see, and some of the other bands that are popular there are bands that I love as well. But it's still important that the other markets where we did well were because we were touring a lot. And even if we didn't have the radio play that we would have loved to have in those areas, the fact that we were playing with some really high volume shows, like with the Ted Nugent tours and playing with Kiss and some of the bands we played with, got us to some markets that without the radio play, we still got an audience. I think my one of my best compliment that I got was the last show we did in San Antonio. The drummer of Axe came up to me. I'd never met him before, and he said that he saw us in Detroit, or actually it was Kalamazoo, Michigan, with Rush. He went to that show, and he said, watching that show, he decided he wanted to be a drummer. Now, I'm sure he was talking about Neil Peart, but of course I took it as well because I was playing drums.
No, it was you.
But it was important
I'm
because
sorry, Neil who?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yo.
because, when people go to a show and they see something they really like and it influences them enough to want to, emulate that and become a musician themselves. And by the way, he's a great drummer. I loved the fact that we played together and watching them. He's a great drummer. So it was a nice compliment. But yeah, it's a bittersweet pill that Joe Anthony kept us from some areas we might have done better. But again, we don't have regrets over that. There's people that have said, you guys, and this is what I like, the people that have listened to our records and do get into it seem to love them, which means we did something right. And that's all we really set out to do, was write music, perform music, and try to do the best records we could.
Yeah.
The fact that we didn't make it into the superstardom, as you put out, you said, and it's true, it's okay. At least we got a chance to, as I like to say, we got to open the door and look at success. I just wish I could have walked in the room, sat down, and put my feet up.
Yeah, I call it you have seen the top of the mountain.
True.
But you're not a good climber, and you're afraid of heights.
Well, the thing is there's so many good bands that will never make it to the level we did, that it would be selfish to feel bad that we didn't get more out of it.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I've seen some other great bands that just blew me away, and no one else has ever heard of them. They never got a record deal, period, and never got to go on tour. So we thank our lucky stars too, that we were able to do what we did. And if anything, it brought us to you guys to do this interview. So we did something right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a kung fu mind about how to feel about that. You touched on all of these emotional things, like you can't get mad. You can't. You're extremely grateful, right? And you don't you don't feel deserving. You don't feel any guilt. You have no regret. This is a kung fu thing. This is like a Zen type of an attitude, where a lot of bands shoot themselves in the foot because they want more and more and more, and then I think their songs kind of die after that.
Well, Grasshopper, the truth is
I
you
think I
have
have
to
a
feel
pebble. I
lucky
think I
and
have a
blessed
pebble
for the
around
things
here
that you do
somewhere.
accomplish. And you can't regret the things that you didn't do. I mean, life is a miracle at best anyway. So the fact that we were able to do some incredible things, we go back to some of the concerts that we played going, we were really there, and we got to experience some really cool stuff. I mean, for example, the Ted Nugent, that was pretty much the height of Ted Nugent. And some of those concerts they were in arenas, they were in stadiums, and we became super good friends with every band we played with. Well, almost every band we played with. And we had a great time, and we learned a lot. And, we have a lot of memories to go along with this story.
So you guys toured with Ted Nugent U.S. tour? Was there any? I mean, I want to get into all the bands that you toured with, but and the same answer, I want you to give me what markets, if you can, or even other countries, overseas or whatever. Can you give us like a shopping list of all of the, when bands used to be kick ass, and tell us, who
That's
you
why
got to-
That's why Jeff's here. He can remember about 3 times as many bands as I can.
Okay, well, you guys can battle over who answers the question. Give us a
Go.
list of
Go,
all
Jeff.
of the awesome
Well-
bands. I mean, you mentioned Rush and Kiss and Axe and Ted Nugent. I mean, did you go to Europe with anyone? Did you go to, tell us about it.
When we went to Europe, we actually headlined.
Cool.
Music for Nations put together a tour in the UK with one of their other bands, and we shared a bus. They actually became our techs for that tour, which we wouldn't have ever asked them to do. But Martin Hooker, who ran Music for Nations, said, "Look, you guys are going to go on tour with Legs Diamond." And we did like large clubs.
Yeah.
One of them belonged to one of the guys from, was it not Megadeth? The one where the lead guitar player flies an airplane.
Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
Oh,
It was called the
This
the
little-
Oval.
This
It was
little
called the
band,
Oval.
Iron Maiden. Yeah. Oh,
Little
okay.
club. We had to take cold showers because there was no hot water left. And,
Well, that's rock and
we
roll.
probably needed cold showers anyway after
Yeah.
the show.
Good for you.
But yeah, that was about probably only 2 or 3 weeks, but it was a blast going all through the English countryside and stuff. And
I hate to do this again, Michael, but what year was that, and what record were you touring technically?
I want to say that was probably around 95, and it was The Wish.
Okay.
And we ended up, our last show was the Marquee in London.
Oh,
all
legendary.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
legendary.
And we knew it was legendary, but at that point, I didn't know Jimi Hendrix had played there and all these other. I'm going like, wow, that place was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Iron Maiden played there, and Twisted Sister played there, and everyone who's anyone has played there, kind of like the Hammersmith. Jeff, give us a list of, and this is for me and Dave's own giggly fandom here,
Yeah.
fanboy shit, is because we love Nugent, we love Rush, we like Axe. Notice I didn't say love Axe. Can you give us a list of all these badass? I mean, we could talk about Kiss all day. You guys playing with Kiss, but what's a shopping list of bands you guys have either opened for or that maybe somebody opened for you and now they're megastars? Tell us some of that.
Well, I bring up Ted Nugent because we were signed to their agency, DMA. So with that agency, we were able to do a lot of shows with Ted Nugent and with Golden Earring, one of my favorites. The drummer is just amazing.
Yes, he is.
And I will say that at the end of one of the tours we did with them, he grabs me and he goes, and this is a funny story. He goes, "Jeff, tonight we drink." And I thought, okay, I'm not a heavy drinker, but he puts down a bottle of cognac. And
yeah.
he's making me go back and forth with him. I'm ready to bow out. I can't go any further. And he finishes it like it was nothing. So, and we used to stay at the same hotel. And I remember Rick and I and Michael, we'd play football with those guys in the hallway. We would say, they didn't know, they obviously big, soccer fans.
Yeah.
They didn't know American football. So we would joke and say, okay, well, hike the ball. And then we would just run and tackle them and knock them down. And they're looking at us like, "What are you doing?" We go, "No, that's the rules." So, I mean, we were having a blast with those guys, but
Wow,
one of my
Golden
other
Earring.
favorite
Where is
times,
Golden
we
Earring
did a
from?
series of co-headline dates with Styx.
Where is Golden Earring from? Real quick, sorry for my own brain.
They're from.
I want to say Holland.
I
Yeah, I
was.
think they're either-
somewhere
I think
around
they're
there.
Holland.
Might
They
be
weren't
right.
British. They weren't
No.
British.
No,
And I think
that.
they finally just broke up because either one of the members just died or he got really sick and had to retire. So I think they've decided they're gonna call it quits. But they were around for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
And we were pretty much the guys. After a show, we'd have a couple beers. Those guys, they drank the straight hard stuff, and I knew from the first time we hung out with them, I can't even sit at a table and drink with these guys. I'd be dead.
This isn't going to end well, right?
No.
Not for me.
So
We also, I believe, I think it's 1977. I'm not sure. We have the state. I think it was the indoor arena largest show. That was Ted Nugent, and then it was another category where it was smaller venues, but it was still supposed to be the largest of that type. We played with Sammy Hagar. That was the Swing Auditorium,
wow.
and we were able to play, with Montrose back in his heyday as well.
Yes.
We were the band that did the opening tour of the Babies when they first came to America. They pitted us with them, so we did all the shows with them, and that was a trip. We played New York. We played a lot of different Detroit, Ohio. We played a lot of different dates with those guys. We played with the Cars. They they booked us for a while. We
And you mentioned Styx.
Yeah.
Styx.
That was the Grand
Illusion tour and the tour after
I
that,
love that record.
which I think was Pieces of Eight.
And that's late 70s, 77, 78.
And it was fantastic. I mean, I'm a fan of that band, and to watch them night after night, it was kind of like when we played with Alice Cooper. I would go to the soundboard after our show and just watch his show because he was so amazing. So we
that's like
we
going
got
to
to tour with Alice Cooper
It's
as
like
well.
going to school.
Yeah. I just saw him about a month ago, and he's still amazing.
Yeah.
He is.
So I wanted to kind of put some chronological order into all this. I want to come back to this point where we're talking about now, sort of your commercial peak, if you will. But I want to go back to the beginnings of the band. Your first two records came out in 77. You were based out of the Los Angeles area. At that time, when you're getting started, what is your scene like in LA? Who are your peers? What venues are you playing? What kind of buzz are you creating? You're on Mercury Records, so you've got a major label deal. Are you doing gigs with like Van Halen or the early version of Quiet Riot? Are you not part of that LA scene? You part of a different LA scene? Tell me what your scene was like when the band was starting.
I'm going to let Michael tell the story of Van Halen.
Okay.
And Quiet Riot also was with our management company at the time, so we did shows with them as well.
And we actually shared a rehearsal room with Quiet Riot. It had two stages facing each other. So, and this is back when you used to rehearse 7 nights a week. It was cool. That was the original, Quiet Riot, and later on we became friends with, Frankie and miss him. Really sorry about what happened to him. As you get older, 60 something seems pretty young,
Yeah.
And the Kiss story was it the Kiss story you wanted me to
No,
tell?
you're going to tell the Van Halen story.
Oh, the Van Halen's,
which
God.
is funny, but
All right.
again, you have to be there.
So Jeff and I are visiting this girl who was a friend of the band, and his dad used to be my dad's publisher. And so we'd had a couple beers, and she goes, "Hey, I want to put some makeup on you guys." And we're going, "All right, whatever." And so she did like the whole, eye makeup and all that stuff. And we're hanging out, having a few more beers, and we completely forgot we had makeup on, So we went down to the Rainbow, and at some point we're going up the stairs. On the second floor is where the bathrooms are. So it's time to go to the bathroom. And there's another club up there. So we get to the top of the stairs, and right behind us is Eddie and David, and taps us on the shoulder, pulls us over to the side, which is where the cigarette machine was. And Eddie's going, "Man, anytime you guys need an opening act, we don't care where you're playing, where it is, just call us, man. We'll open for you guys anytime." And we're going, "Okay, cool." And and then they went their way and we went our way. And about an hour later, we get home and I'm looking in the mirror and going, "Holy crap." Because we had girls' makeup on, full on girls' makeup on. But the funny thing was we did get signed before them. So that's why, and they were smart. They were good business people. They were talking to us, but we were still across the country at an opening band level. So we couldn't really dictate, "Oh, we want Van Halen to play before us," because it was Kiss or REO Speedwagon
Yeah.
or Ted Nugent, it was their show. We were
What was
just
your
lucky to be there.
at that point? What was your discography?
I don't even think I'm not even sure our first album had come out
Yeah,
yet.
At the time, we were playing and headlining the Whiskey and the Starwood, which was a really good rock club at the time.
Yeah,
and
that-
they
I
were
feel like-
headlining in kind of the house band for Gazzari's
Yeah,
and a place that was in their neighborhood in Pasadena, which we did play one time, and I forget the name of the club. But they were headlining their dates. We were headlining our dates. And I think it was attractive to try to get both bands together. But I think that some of the promoters that were booking these clubs weren't really that keen on it because either band was selling out the club. And if you pay for both of them, you're still only going to fit so many people in the club. And it probably didn't work. So it's a shame because we could have played with them. And by the way, that joke about opening for them anytime, years later, we'd be somewhere going, maybe we should call them now and say we're ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're another example of a band that makes all the right decisions, sticks together, and gets the breaks because you've got to have everything. You've got to have an act. You got to have the songs. You have to have the talent, but you also have to make the right decisions. And you got to be lucky as well. You've got to have the right team behind you. And that includes management. That includes a record company that's willing to do whatever. And then if you've got the talent like Van Halen had, that would go out there and lay it out on stage, it's a recipe for success.
Yeah.
And hats off to them. They accomplished more than, most bands.
Yeah, sure.
And
so
for people old enough, I'll just throw this in there because we used to tour with Black Oak, Arkansas, too.
Wow.
If you've ever seen Jim Dandy and David Lee Roth's act and what they wore, there's something similar about it.
Yeah, very.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I love them both. I love them both.
yeah.
Well, you didn't do the Van.
That's sort of. I'm sorry, Dave. That's a consummate frontman. You're sort of molding there when you take
totally
stuff like that, and throw some Bon Scott, throw some Janis Joplin, which is just Steven Tyler stole her whole thing. He sang like her, he dressed like her, everything. Those types of iconic. With any kind, they can sing anything you want. Range, they got the cat yowl, they got the dark, they can do it all. They can sing heavy metal, they can sing rock and roll, they can sing blues and Motown and funk and whatever, because of it's all that. That's all that. I truly believe that Bon Scott doesn't get the recognition, the respect that he still deserves. And even though Brian Johnson, the new guy, has been saying that in every fucking interview for 40 years that it's all about Bon. It's all about Bon. He showed everybody how to do it. Da 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 da. And I think that Roth and Dandy, sorry to total the fanboy thing is finally turned on. May I interrupt here for just a moment and just like bull in a china shop, just knock some shit over that still has to do with Legs. Okay, Legs Diamond. When I was a young boy growing up in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh, Ritz Theater.
Yes. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. So that would have been 76. It was 75, 76, 77. Okay. With those formative years there, 11, 12, 13. Completely obsessed with rock and roll music. Elton John, Queen, Alice Cooper, Kiss. There were these guys, they were a few years older than me, that went to the school across the street. I was younger, so I was in the junior high or whatever. And I used to see them, and I knew they had a band, and I knew one of the guys, and I used to go surfing with the drummer and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they were looking for a place to rehearse. I ran home. I told my mom, I go, hey man, our washroom wasn't enclosed. It wasn't a car. It was a carport, but then there's a room with a lock and stuff, right? And we kept tools and bikes and whatever. And I was like, Mom, that'd be a great rehearsal room. And here I am being sort of managerial at like 12 years old. can these guys, some of them are live in the neighborhood. Can they rehearse in there? Only if they play my Christmas party for free. And I'm like, "Fuck, yeah." So I ran back to school and I told them, you guys can rehearse in my, just for lack of a better term, my garage, and you guys can stay set up and locked, and I'll be the watchdog on all your gear, because they had real gear, Strats and Marshalls, and I think the kit was an old Rogers, but it was a double bass and 4 tom
nice.
rack and 2 floors, and and I'm still in contact with that guy. His name is Chip Stella. He lives in Dallas now, but we were Corpus Christi rockers, kids. And here's where I'm going. They were just a cover band. They were called Rocks, which is still related to you guys.
We remember them.
I don't think that there's probably 100 bands. Sorry, Jeff. There's probably 100 bands called Rocks, but they didn't really go
I think we
anywhere.
played with 50 of them.
They didn't, yeah. They didn't do anything outside my mom's kick-ass Christmas party. They played a couple of little pubby type places in Corpus, but they didn't really do anything. The coolest part was that I had a pet rock band in my garage that when they left, I could play their drums and plug in the Strat into the
Nice.
Marshall and make sound, even though I didn't know what the fuck I was doing until about 6 months later. So anyway, they played this array of most awesome rock music that I was very, very new to. They opened up an entire world to me. Like I said, I already told you who I was into. I was into all the biggies, right? Kiss, when I found Kiss, it destroyed my brain in the most beautiful way. But the point is this. They played this song, among others, they covered the Cars. They did like all the Cars only had the debut and Candio, the first 2 records. So they were playing the radio songs off of that. And they were playing Nugent. They were playing, Moxie. They were playing, anyway, they played this song called Stage Fright. And
Heard of that?
yeah,
You guys might have heard of it. Yeah.
me too.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Me too.
Still scared of it.
And then I found the record in my older brother's record collection. So I'm putting all this shit together and I'm going, this song Stage Fright is like proto heavy metal to me. And I'm like going, wait a minute, it's Black Sabbath, it's Montrose, it's more than that. It's the beginnings of what was coined later on as new wave of British heavy metal to me. There was something about that had what, Diamond Head and Iron Maiden and That's Good Enough, that I would soon to fall in love with years later. But it was a gateway drug, Stage Fright. I got the record, my mind, Sat Peacock and Rat Race and all this shit started to completely make me feel like I needed to go to the fucking hospital. It was the most beautiful thing ever, and I just wanted to share that with you. And then the subsequent records, A Diamond Is a Hard Rock, and then later on, Out on Bail, I heard on 99.5 Kiss in San Antonio all the fucking time, with Woman and just all that shit that Dave can chime in at any point and say that was my child, that was me growing up, that was part of the thing. So I'm just basically a circle jerk here to tell you that Stage Fright started this thing with me that was this other place other than the Queen and Elton and Kiss and of course Rush and UFO and Thin Lizzy and Nugent, and I had all that shit on my walls everywhere until it all turned into Gene Simmons. But the point is exactly the fucking same. Stage Fright is still one of my favorite fucking songs of all time.
No,
you guys had this deep
Mine too.
You right? You guys had this Deep Purple thing about you that I don't feel like gets discussed in my circle very much.
Yeah,
I think that the organ tone and the whatever you guys were doing as rhythmically on keys, Michael, and Rick's voice and just everything about it had this That's why see what I'm saying with the new wave of British heavy metal. There was this thing going on that I didn't know about that American bands were even doing. Another band that did it without keys, of course, was Riot.
Another band we played with.
Yeah,
lot.
of course you did.
Yeah.
Of course you
Yeah.
did, because you guys were big in San Antonio, and so were they.
Can I elaborate on that
Yes,
Deep
please
Purple
stop
connection?
me, because I will go an hour.
Well, no, I mean, first of all, your take on your childhood with Stage Fright, we share, because I believe I was only 9 years old on that album. So it was my childhood as well.
Well,
I hadn't even gone through puberty when we did that
most
album.
badass 9-year-old drumming I've ever
Yeah,
heard
it was
in my life.
it was amazing, but I still had long hair, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
People have asked about the Deep Purple connection, and I think a lot of it has to do with the early days when Michael Diamond, aka Michael Gargano, and I started the band up in the Bay Area. We were a guitar-oriented band, searching for a sound that we really wanted to have. And after a few fairly successful just playing clubs, but not nearly good enough to be signed to a record label and tour, we had a conversation, and I said, why don't we switch directions and add keyboards and go in that direction? Because Deep Purple was both Michael and I's favorite band. And he agreed, and we actively looked. And so when we found Michael Prince and he joins the band, I like to say that that's the key to when the real Legs Diamond starts, because now we've developed a sound that we are happy with, and we can go in this direction. And it was the fact that we loved Deep Purple, and through the years we were very fortunate to become very good friends with all of them, including the road manager at the time when we were just starting out. We had we used to go to Richie Blackmore's house. He would loan our guitar player at the time his guitar. So there was a huge connection there.
Not really.
And we
Everybody
weren't trying to sound like. Well, I just want to point out we're not trying to sound like Deep Purple, but adding the keyboards and with the B3 sound that Michael was giving, it started to lean in that direction. And that's when I think the Legs Diamond sound begins, and that's when the writing starts to become what it's going to be.
Yeah. I was going to ask. That's one of my questions here. I've heard
I can see that. That's why I said that.
Yeah, that's my cheat sheet right there. I've heard people refer to you as the American Deep Purple, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on that, because there are some songs to me that it's very evident, and they are obviously the keyboard-driven songs. But there's a good bit of your repertoire that I don't see the Deep Purple connection. So I don't know if it's kind of a lazy description, or if you feel like there's some value to it, or it's valid in some ways. But I definitely hear it in the keyboard-driven songs.
Well, keep in mind that Michael Prince plays guitar as well. So some of his writings will be with keyboards, some of them with all guitar. So we go both directions. And some of those all guitar songs are some of my favorites. But when he's playing on the keyboards, I think that's when we really established that Deep Purple connection.
Yeah.
That's kind of a UFO sort of twist on things.
Yeah.
Another great band that was really popular in San Antonio. And fortunately, we did get to play with them while they were all still alive as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started out in high school or junior high school, probably the 6th grade, learning how to play guitar, because the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, they didn't have keyboard players. So my mom started paying for guitar lessons, and we rented an acoustic guitar. It was probably $5 a month. And I'm going, why do I have to start on an acoustic guitars? And so anyway, but you have to learn how to play plectrum guitar, down, 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 down. And then when we moved to Atlanta, I think she felt sorry for me because she pulled me out of, what grade was it? I don't know.
Jail.
Midway through the 8th grade. Hey, we're moving. Because I was supposed to graduate from the 8th grade. Anyway, she felt sorry for me, bought me an electric guitar. It was the Gibson. And so, but guitar was always my thing. And we finally found a guy who said he could play keyboards. And of course, I've been taking piano lessons since I was 7. And his name was Oscar Lewis. And we kept saying, when are you going to get an organ? He goes, I'm getting it for Christmas. I went, cool. So he finally gets this organ. His dad buys him one. He brings it to rehearsal. It's this big. And it's the kind that has a fan in it. So when you hold the keys down, the fan is blowing air through the keys and the sound comes out a hole in the bottom of the organ. It was the it sounded like a bad accordion. So we put a Shure mic right up underneath there, and all you heard was the wind. It was like whistling into a mic, and we go, Oscar, this organ is not, and we found out he couldn't play. So I said to the guys in the band, I said, hey, I can play a lot better than that. And they went, really? So I worked all summer bagging groceries at the grocery store and bought a Rheem organ, which was a poor man's Farfisa. So that's what I started with that. But once you put it through a Leslie, it sounded pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a Rheem air conditioned system in my house.
I have a Rheem water heater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good choice.
Did
You
you
don't
guys,
make organs anymore.
there was I think I saw a story somewhere where, there's a famous story about Gene Simmons from Kiss being interested in Van Halen when they were still a club band. And there was some back and forth. You guys, everyone here knows that story. But I think I heard there was a similar story with you guys and Gene Simmons. Is that correct? Was there a moment there in the early days when he was interested in producing you, managing you, taking you on tour? You did some dates on the
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Over tour, I think.
Hold on, let me get a cup of cocoa and a cookie because this is going to be good.
Well,
I think we both have
I'll
Gene
let-
Simmons stories.
I'll let Jeff chime in too, but we have a friend that we've known for many years, Susan, and I think she was dating Gene for a while, but she loved our band. She brought Gene to a couple rehearsals, and
Wow.
that turned into why we were opening shows for them. He wanted us to sign with their agency, I believe, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Their agency, which we didn't. But one night at a rehearsal, he comes up to me and he goes, and remember, I'm really green behind the ears. We haven't even recorded our first album. We were probably negotiating, but we hadn't signed it yet. And he goes, would it be okay if Kiss did Satin Peacock? And I'm going, no.
One of your songs.
That's one of our songs. Because, you think you're going to be at least as big as Kiss, So long story short, I never even knew why he wanted to do it other than it was a pretty good song. But then literally 15 years ago, it dawned on me what the lyrics are in the chorus. It's kiss me if you miss me, but don't mess up my hair. So it was a perfect song for them. And I just wish I would have said yes.
It's a great rock and roll song, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only you knew then what you know now.
You don't need Gene to tell you, even though he pretty much told you, that's a good fucking song.
So you ended up doing some dates on the Rock and Roll Over tour. Is that right?
Well, it was 77. So whatever tour that was, I don't know.
Yeah, it was all stadiums, and the whole audience would show up in Kiss makeup. So for us, because it was just the two bands, it was a little daunting when you walk out there and all you can see is Kiss makeup. But
Yeah.
I have to say the crowd was great. They loved us, and however many minutes we were given for the first show, they added minutes for every show afterwards because Kiss loved us.
Do you think it was?
I think Kiss was even shocked because, and all of our friends, musician friends, have been telling us, "Oh man, you don't want to open for Kiss." We're going, why? Oh, they're gonna throw Rotten Tomatoes at you. They're gonna, they want to see is Kiss. They're gonna all have Kiss makeup on. That's the only band in the world they like, and we're going, damn. So anyway, we set up and we do our first show, and the audience loved us, and after the show, Paul and Gene came into our dressing room because I think our first show, they only gave us 30 minutes. And they go, guys, that was really good. From now on, you get 45 minutes. And that's a confident band that does that. It was the opposite of opening for the Babies. The Babies, we would kick their butt every night, and they kept making our set shorter and shorter. And then they stopped moving their gear out of the way. And then we had some of our equipment out on our road cases because it got nuts. And we still got a better audience response than them. And then they kicked us off the tour.
Yeah.
Well, we got them back a little bit. The show that Michael's talking about, we played at the Yorkville Theater in, I think that was New York.
New York, yeah.
And it was a small stage. And they not only wouldn't move any of the equipment. The drums are on a riser that rolls back and forth. They wanted to leave it right where it is. They wouldn't move anything. And then they said that you have to set up in front. So I had a 9x9 drum riser that I used. Obviously, we couldn't put it on its wheels. We set the wood up on the front of the stage, the whole, I'd say 2 feet in front of the drums. I was hanging in the audience. And Michael Diamond was sitting on road cases next to the stage, so he couldn't move around. Michael had his one spot for his keyboards. He had to play guitar standing at his keyboards. And Rick Sanford, the sing, he stood on the side of me by my by my drum stool. So he's either on my left or he's on my right singing. There was no stage for him to go. If he went to the front of my drum stage, it would be like a diving board, and he'd end up in the audience. So not only that, but then they tell us that and by the way, when you guys are done, we need you out of the dressing room as fast as possible. We have press that wants to come in and use it. So we are, needless to say, pissed. And we walk out there and gave probably one of the best performances we ever did. And the crowd loved us. And we finished the show. We got out of the dressing room and we went and watched them. They were pelted with eggs and tomatoes during that show. And I remember talking to the guys after, going, hey, guys, you do know that crowd had that stuff while we were playing. They didn't throw it at us. They threw it at them.
Yeah.
So But years later, after telling the story to one of our, I think it was Denny Vosberg, who was part of management with Alice Cooper, we started playing with him and we told him that story. And the Babies were on that tour as well. And he goes, well, guys, from now on, the Babies don't do sound checks, only you. And we thought, well, that's a little payback. We didn't really necessarily ask for it, but it was kind of cool because Alice Cooper likes to set up his gear. They check everything's working, but he traditionally doesn't do sound checks. He doesn't come out there and perform songs. And so the whole sound check time, once Alice Cooper was set up, was given to us. And we could play as long as we wanted. So it was kind of a payback on that. Not that we were asking for it, but rock and roll has a way of getting people back, I guess. Yeah. I want to tell a quick story before I forget on the Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
We used to go to the Rainbow. And back then, at that time, was the heyday of the Rainbow. And everybody who was anybody would go to the Rainbow. And I have so many great stories from there. But one of them was I would talk to Gene Simmons. He gave me some helpful advice on, being out in public and things like that. And then eventually he was coming to our rehearsals. And when we finally got booked to do those shows with them, I think it was the first show we were playing in Lexington, Kentucky. And the tunnel was underneath the arena. So you had to walk through this long tunnel to get to the stage. And I remember, and it's one of my greatest moments, and that's why I never forget it. I'm walking towards this huge figure that's walking towards me, and it's Gene. And finally we get up to each other, and he looks at me and he points and he goes, I always knew you'd make it. And at that point, it was the proudest moment of my life because it validated that we had worked hard. We were finally somewhere and we belonged on that stage with him. And I never forgot it. I joke sometimes it's like that old commercial you see sometimes in the retro Super Bowl commercials where the kid wants the jersey or hands the Coke to Mean Joe Green and he throws him that jersey.
Yep.
It was exactly one of those moments for me, and I never forgot it. He was very inspirational. I like the fact that he was a businessman and he was clean and sober and just all about the show. And one of the shows we did with them, I think, was in Columbus, Ohio. And there was a problem with where the stage was. It was at a university, and the height of the ceiling didn't allow them to use all their effects. And I remember thinking, okay, well, now we're going to see Kiss without all those special effects. Let's see what they do. They went out there and killed it. They kicked butt. They were incredible. And so, some people say, well, they're a great show because of all those special effects. No, they were great. Just pure and simple. They were great even without the effects.
That's like saying Pink Floyd can't play unless they have a laser light show, which is what? Pink Floyd can't play? Oh, they can't write a song either? Any kind of song they fucking want? Yeah, it's kind of,
Hey, can I tell a quick Rainbow story?
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, man, come on.
Story of the Rainbow. It was a time when everybody who was anybody was there. Every time I walked in, if I saw Richie Blackmore, he would say, come here and sit down and, what are you drinking? And naturally it was, well, whatever he was having, but a lot of fun. But one night I'm standing and I'm talking and as a drummer, you got to know that this is just big for me. I'm talking to John Bonham And we're talking about snare
Oh.
drums and drum heads and recording techniques and all this stuff. He's just a super nice guy, telling me everything. And he looks at me and goes, Jeff, we got to go sit down. And I said, why? He goes, the show's about to begin. And I look over and Keith Moon has just walked into the Rainbow. So we walked over to the corner table and sat down, and I watched Keith go from one table to the other, just being hilarious. And he ended up at our table, and I, got to hang out with the two of them. And it was just,
Wow.
back then it was a special time, and a lot of the people that went there were, very inspirational to all of us. And I think that, kind of helped shape some of the stuff that we ended up doing, because fortunately we were able to hang out with the, the who's who of the rock world.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's great. That's John Bonham and Keith Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everyone can even just say like, "Oh yeah, I remember that time with
Yeah,
John."
I mean, that
John
would
and
be
Keith. Yeah,
that would be a career highlight for me, and I don't even play drums. So imagine what it's like for Jeff being a drummer. So
yeah.
yeah. I want to go. I want to get back to San Antonio a little bit. So I lived there. I was born there, and my dad was in the Air Force. So we went back. We were in and out of San Antonio 3 different times. But the last time was during my high school years. So it was about 82 into the early 90s or so, and that was the time when Joe Anthony was playing the living daylights out of Legs Diamond. Off the top of my head, Fugitive, Walk Away, Out on Bail, Woman, Stage Fright, Rat Race, Underworld King, all these songs. So I knew them very well, and you guys were definitely had a stronghold. And like I said at the top of the show, your concerts were just big, massive events. And so I wanted to talk about the album. So the first 2 albums were on Mercury. So you were on a major label. Then I guess you were dropped from Mercury, and Firepower came out on Cream Records. Yes, which by the way, who else was on that roster? I never even heard of that label before.
Snail.
Who?
Snail.
Snail. Okay.
It was slow to get to know him.
Yeah.
Well, there's
still waiting. Yeah.
There's a short story behind Cream Records, and that was Al Bennett was the owner of Cream Records. He started RCA Records and ended up selling it. He was a multi-millionaire. And, Alvin in the Chipmunks,
Yeah.
that was named after Al Bennett. So this Cream Records was his little toy. And his son was going to take it over. Was his name Wayne, Jeff? Wayne, yeah. And so it was just, we were happy to be there. They had a decent budget, terrible producer, and Wayne was going to take over, and Wayne loved the band. And 2 weeks before our album came out, Firepower, Wayne got killed.
Oh.
And Al Bennett comes back from his ranch, and you could tell that label was just sort of, he was getting ready to fold it because he didn't need it. He just wanted to get out of there and get back to his ranch. So timing
Yeah.
was not in our favor.
And then there was a gap. You guys, I think, effectively kind of broke up after the Firepower record, or at least you were kind of on hiatus, I guess, because there was a 4 or 5 year gap between Firepower and Out on Bail. Is that right?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. And then Out on Bail comes out on Target, I think. And I didn't know anything about that label either, except for you guys. And I only know that because I lived in San Antonio. So, but that album, you guys obviously went through some lineup changes. Now Jim May is in on guitar, and Mike Christie replaces Michael Diamond. And that album was big in San Antonio. It might have been, I don't know, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to go out on a limb and say out of the albums you had done up to that point, that was probably the most, had the best sales as an album, as an entire piece of work. Well, it was probably also a little more available at the time too. But to me, that was a huge comeback. That was the album, that was the first Legs Diamond album I owned because I could go to the store and find it. It was available to me, and I loved the record, and it had all, the songs off that album were great. So is that fair to say that Out on Bail might have been your most popular album, at least in the San Antonio market, or how does it stack up with the others?
I don't know, because we don't live in San Antonio, and we never really got like sales reports from labels or anything like that. So if you think it was more popular there, then it may very well have been.
What
Well,
about going by crowd reaction in different markets?
Well, it got a great crowd reaction, and I will say something about Out on Bail in the Los Angeles area. I remember it was kind of refreshing that suddenly one of our top rock stations, KLOS at the time, started playing Out on Bail. And we hadn't had radio play in Los Angeles for quite a while. We did in the first album, we had quite a bit. And then it was like we disappeared out of LA, even though we were considered a Los Angeles band. And Out on Bail, they started playing it again. So suddenly we were back on the airwaves here. So I think it was pretty well received across the country.
Yeah, very well in San Antonio. I mean, there's 4 songs on side one. All 4 of those songs on side one are radio staples in San Antonio.
Well, which is funny because a lot of times I get crap for the using the electric drums on it. Yeah. And I think there was one thing that Legs Diamond was trying to do, and whether it was conscious or unconscious, we were trying to make our album somewhat different all the time and try to evolve and create something new. I think a lot of that had to do with, we had read that the Beatles, for example, each album they wanted to change and make it somewhat better and not be one sound at all times. And we kind of used that philosophy somewhat, maybe unconsciously, but try to make each album different. And at the time, you had Terry Bozzio, Missing Persons, using electric drums. They were very popular. And so we thought we would give it a try. It was really the producer's idea to do it. We all went along with it thinking that maybe this will work. And I was never thrilled with the sound of the drums. And I may have had my complaints over the years about them. But as you said, and I think you're right, that album did really well. And for example, the live shows that we still do now, where we pick material that we want to play that we think people are going to want to hear because they want to hear the older stuff, we still do at least 3 songs off of that album live.
Yeah.
So as far as an album goes, it's one of the most played live in current Legs Diamond shows.
That's true.
Yeah. I think that was the point I was trying to make in some roundabout way. And so here's my other question about Out on Bail. I couldn't help but notice that I'm holding up the album cover for those who are listening and not watching. Let me get this into view. There is the picture of the band on the front. 4 out of the 5 of you guys are wearing the exact same shoes.
So that's true. Those are Capezios.
Capezios, yeah. So did you guys get a 2-for-1 at the shoe store?
Yeah, we must have. Now, I've worn them because as a drummer, I like the way they felt on the foot pedals because you have full feeling with your foot. So when I'm known as a kind of a toe player. I don't rest my whole foot on the foot pedal because I try to play, fast or as fast as I can. And so I use my toes quite a bit. And with those shoes, you could really feel the pedal really well. So I went to those. Not sure why everybody else did, except they were fashionable and I thought they looked really good.
I mean,
I don't think
Randy
we consciously counted and said, okay, hey, there's 4 of us all wearing the same shoes. I don't think we ever really noticed that.
Yeah, Randy, leave it to a rock and roll nerd who noticed that stuff. Randy Rhoads wore those.
Yeah, and so did David Lee Roth. So.
Rod Stewart and the Scorpions wore those. It's like I know who Legs Diamond got fashion advice from now.
You were in good company when it came to footwear. Yeah. So we got to talk about Woman. That song in San Antonio, it's been called, San Antonio's version of Stairway to Heaven. And I can vouch for that. I've lived there for years and years and years. That song was always on the radio, always requested by listeners. A huge response at your gigs. Every person singing along, just waiting for that song to happen.
Let me jump in real quick. Hold that thought, Dave. Please don't lose your place. I just want to say a song like Woman, it's almost like this sort of, I hated the word ballad, but, it has this building effect. It starts soft and it's broken down and then it comes in and kicks in and da-da-da-da. So a ballad, just terrible word. that
Yeah, it's a
fits
rock ballad.
just-
No, it's a
yeah,
power
okay.
ballad.
Okay, so giant biker dudes with devil tattoos singing with double fisted going "Wama" in the
Don't
audience.
forget they're flying at the time.
Yeah, and the girls
Yeah,
are like the girls like it, but these big Vikings are fucking loving this like dainty little cute pretty song, and I love that. And for a rock and roll songwriter to be able to write a song like that, there's like something amiss. There's something disengage. I don't know. There's something there's a disconnect there that connects with them. Because when you're writing something like that, and you guys can prove me wrong if you want, you're not thinking about big giant biker Viking guys who are got 2 bottles of Jack Daniels with tattoos on their face singing "Woman."
Yes, not often. Not
You
often
guys
do we
pulled
do
it
that.
off. You guys pulled it off.
But unfortunately, now that'll be etched in my mind. So I'll be thinking about that a lot now.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So my point being that that song, I haven't lived in San Antonio now for 25 years, so I don't know if it's still on the radio, and because radio formats have changed dramatically in the time since. But that song, I mean, had staying power big time, and it was kind of an unlikely song. And as Jason mentioned, it went across the board. Guys loved it, girls loved it, and it was 6 minutes.
I call it crossover. It's crossover.
It was 6 minutes long. It definitely wasn't suited for radio.
Nope.
So, and obviously, when you're writing that song, you're not writing it with any of this in mind. So, take us back to the genesis of that song, and tell listeners how it came about, because it's a song that's etched in the brains of so many people, and I'm sure they would love to hear how it came to be.
You want me to take that, Jeff, first?
Yeah, you should.
Then you put your light on it. We had a song before Roger joined the band that we wrote about a manager we had who had some shortcomings, and it was called Stumbler. And the chorus in Stumbler was very similar to Woman, the chorus in Woman.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the da 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 da, couple notes different, but almost the same. And so I say they, because really Michael and Roger and Rick wrote what we call Woman. But we took that part of Stumbler, and Roger had this cool intro that he played originally on electric guitar, and he used it as the intro for his guitar solo on some of our early concerts. And then he came to rehearsal and he played it on acoustic guitar, and we're going like, holy shit, that sounds awesome. So we married that to that more hard rocky kind of chorus. And then I think Michael Diamond probably wrote all the lyrics.
Yeah, Michael Diamond wrote the lyrics.
He was a great lyricist.
Yeah, he was incredible. He still is.
So that song obviously was out of many, but it might be your gold star, if you will, in San Antonio at least. Joe Anthony obviously championing Legs Diamond, many songs, but
Not
Woman, of course,
afraid to play a 6-minute ballad.
Woman rises to the
Yeah, it was a
sort
long
of the
song.
top of the heap. So kind of this is going to work backwards a little bit. So at what point were you aware that this DJ in San Antonio was giving you airplay and helping build an audience for Legs Diamond?
Well, the first time we played San Antonio was at the Municipal Auditorium. Bob Seger was a headliner. We played with Bob Seger, then Stars from New York, and then us. We were the opening band. And I think it's within 4 months, we go back to San Antonio and we're the headliner in the exact same venue. And we're at that point, we're starting to get a lot of radio play and had been getting radio play. And we went down to the radio station and meet everybody and realized that, wow, this is really big. These guys are really playing us, a lot. And everybody seems to know us. I remember even at that time, going down to a restaurant at the Riverwalk, we would be mobbed. And it was a unique kind of cool feeling. I mean, we probably can't say we had a lot of days like that, but when they happen, it's pretty exciting. people are standing out in the restaurant, out lining up, waiting for us to come out so they can try to get pictures and autographs. So at that point, we go, wow, we're getting a lot of radio play. And of course, we're in San Antonio now, spending a few days, and we're hearing it on the radio constantly. So, and another quick thing, we played a show in 2004. Keep in mind that woman was on the Diamonds Are Hard Rock album in 1977.
Yeah.
We did a show in 2005, and going back from the venue at the Sunken Garden Theater to the hotel, the limo driver that was driving us, he says that woman is still getting radio play, and that they just played it at his they played it at his high school reunion. And I looked at him and I said, wow, how long ago was that? And he goes, no, that was last year. And it blew me away. I didn't realize he was that young, but I also didn't realize that it was still popular enough that they're playing it at high school reunions so many years after the album had come out.
And it really speaks to the power of radio. I don't know if radio still has that power now, that anybody can stream anything they want that's ever been written. But back then, it was the voice. It was the voice of the city that the radio station was in. And DJ's personalities certainly helped a lot.
Yes.
Anyway, so they book us in San Angelo,
Texas.
San Angelo, Texas. And we'd never been there, but we played almost every city in Texas you can imagine. So we pull into San Angelo, and I think Jeff and Rick and another guy in the band, you remember, went to the radio station to do an interview. So we start talking to the guy at the club. I went to the club and he's going, oh, we're gonna have a big audience. It's sold out. I'm going, sold out? Really?
Wow.
He goes, oh yeah, man. You guys have the #1 song on the radio. I'm going, wow, that's cool. Thinking it's Stage Fright or Woman or whatever. And I go, oh, really? What song is it? What was the song?
Help Wanted.
Help
from
Wanted.
Firepower.
Wow.
The song we never played live.
We hated
until
the song.
then.
Yeah, I was
hated
going to
it.
say you had to rehearse that real quick, didn't you?
We did.
Real quick.
We spent all sound check relearning the song, because that was one of the ones that Al Bennett owned the publishing on and wanted us to record, thinking he was going to make money. Anyway, that was just it shows you the power of radio, because we didn't even want to play it. So we put it in the middle of the set. The audience is just sitting there. It's sold out, but they're polite. They're sitting down, and we're going, oh, here goes. We got to play Help Wanted. And we start Help Wanted, and they all get up and they come right to the stage. It's like the Beatles are there. I'm going, damn, we should play this first.
Or twice.
It was almost scary. They were sitting, they stand up and they rush the stage. It must have scared the hell out of all of us, because I believe we played that song at twice its speed then. So, everybody got excited and we played it really fast.
Well, just do a breakdown in one of the choruses and, get them to clap and just sing the shit out of that chorus for like 30 minutes.
If only we would have thought of that.
At that town, when we did a in-store interview where we sign autographs and they have the albums and all that, they had this pyramid that was all the Legs Diamond, fake covers on it to line the pyramid. And at one point where they have these tables up that we're behind and we're signing autographs, and I'm not making this up, the girls rushed us and broke through, and I literally climbed to the top of that pyramid trying to get away, and they're ripping my hair out. And at that point, they had to get us all to the back of the store and figure out how they were going to transport us out of there, because the crowd had gone crazy. Again, those times don't happen all the time, but when they happen, a little scary, but really exciting. But yeah, they were ripping my hair out.
Yeah.
So this is let me get this straight. This is in San Angelo, Texas.
Yeah.
Wow.
For a song that was like a throwaway, like filler.
Yeah.
So you
confirms my belief that San Angelo is just fucking weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it is a rock town. I mean, they definitely have a rock audience for sure. You mentioned, Michael mentioned a point that I think we need to reiterate a little bit, and that is because Joe Anthony is so central to the Legs Diamond story. But you're right. There was a time when DJs were given free reign to sort of champion their favorite bands, bring in their own personal record collection and turn you on to stuff that they liked that you might not have heard of. And living in San Antonio like I did, I not only heard Legs Diamond because of Joe Anthony, but I heard Riot, Stars, Moxie, Mahogany Rush, Killer Dwarfs. I mean, for every Iron Maiden, Saxon, and Judas Priest and Def Leppard that he championed, there was this whole other level of bands that never quite got that international stardom, but they're etched in my brain. And if you're one of those bands like you are, that's a really you're in pretty good company. I think that's really cool, and it comes down to a personality. It was a Joe Anthony who put you guys, put your name on the map.
Without a doubt.
Obviously, you guys have the talent, but it took somebody like that with that voice, that broadcast ability to put it out there for the masses.
I want to interrupt and go back to San Angelo. There's a DJ, and this goes with what Michael said. There's a DJ in San Angelo that decided that he loved that song. He or she loved that song so very, very, very much. They had to play it. I mean, I'm guessing there wasn't a deal made on the golf course with some, an envelope, handed under the seat on the golf cart. I think, payola or whatever you want to call it. I think someone decided they loved that song and that song spoke to them.
Yeah.
More than any other song on the record. So they played it because your label that wasn't a single, obviously.
Right. But more importantly, that DJ
actually it was. They did release "Help Wanted" as a single. They did.
Okay.
"You Lost That Love and Feeling" was a single, and I think "More Than Meets the Eye" is on the B side of that.
Okay.
And then "Help Wanted" was a single, and I'm not sure what the B side of that. Tragedy.
Yeah. So those are 45s.
Yeah, those are 45s.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying. The love the DJ had for the song is what created this crazy hoopla with Jeff literally losing hair follicles.
Yeah.
And maybe articles of clothing, I don't know. And then having a shutdown to a rock and roll riot in San Angelo, Texas, makes me have respect for San Angelo. But who knew that any of that chain of events would ever happen? I mean, you guys were shocked more than anyone else. But it leans back to, once again, credit to Michael for saying the power of radio is kind of like this phrase now that makes others, because of the streaming and the download and the deface and the devalue of rock and roll music, in my opinion, is this sort of ritual that can't happen anymore. And I don't really want to dig a hole and have us jump in and have a hot tub party and cry about this, but it's true. And it's
I think more important than the DJ's love of a particular song, more important than that was the freedom to play it. Right. Today, a DJ, first of all, there's not even a human being sitting at the console anymore, and if there is, they might as well have a gun to their head, being told to play these same 10 songs over and over. You're not going to squeeze in your favorite Legs Diamond song on radio today.
No, there might be some shows that at 3:00 in the morning on a Wednesday, they might let the DJ play 2 songs or 1.
Yeah.
And nobody's awake then. But it speaks to not only the power of radio, but the DJ had to have a personality that the listener was drawn in by. And Joe Anthony became known as the Godfather of rock and roll. So that's huge.
Yeah. I want to add to that. There, in all due respect, and give a little love to satellite radio and current times and where we are right now.
True.
Not that I know anything about current times, because I don't, because I'm a dinosaur like most of us in the room here. Take that as a compliment, please. Now, I feel like Sirius and whatever, Ozzy's Boneyard and, Hair Nation and Dee Snider has House of Hair and And Ozzy's Boneyard, in particular, I should just say, I don't listen to satellite radio, but they send me checks. So am I going to get mad that, I get a fish sandwich and a tank of gas? Hell to the no. So it's back to you guys, the personality that you're talking about, like Joe Anthony. There are personalities that have their own shows. I don't know how long these shows are. I don't know how long. Alice Cooper has a show. Dee Snider has a show. These stand-up comics have shows. These personalities that send them reels, I guess, get Luke Carl, who is a jock on Ozzy's Boneyard, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he is one of the personalities on there. Jim Florentine has a show, who's a stand-up comic actor, buddy of ours, who was on That Metal Show on VH1 with Don Jameson and Eddie Trunk and da-da-da. These guys are DJs. These guys are personalities. They're stand-up comics.
Yeah.
They are what Joe Anthony created without even really trying. It was just through rock and roll radio that he became the godfather. So I think that there is something to what satellite radio is trying to convey with the power of radio. It's like, oh, Luke Carl's coming on. So there are fans that listen to his show because these personalities, and this doesn't make or break the conversation, they do get to pick a playlist. It may or may not be have to meet some kind of approval rating with the bosses there, but I don't think so. They pick,
Yeah,
I'm not selling a shit ton of records, and my bands are fairly underground, but they play like my band Broken Teeth. They play that shit.
I love Broken Teeth.
Thank you. But they see what I mean. It's like they're choosing to play that. I'm not begging anyone to play that. I don't have the money to grease that wheel.
Well, I think we still have Tom T-Bone from Kiss Radio has his own show still.
Jepke,
Not sure the time slot he has, but that I believe is still in San Antonio, and I know he still plays us, and he's a great DJ. So I'm sure he's playing a lot of great bands.
Yeah. Jason brings up a valid point. I do think with the advent of whatever you call that, cable radio or subscription services or whatever, there is a cable radio. Did I just say cable radio?
Well, that's what it is.
That's how much I know about
whatever.
Look,
Whatever.
Look,
it's
I
fine.
It's hard to listen to that in your car. The cable's never long enough.
That goes to the that goes to,
I still have vinyl records. So, but the point being that I think there is a little more freedom today with the advent of some of these paid or whatever you call them. It's not terrestrial radio. People out there listening know what I'm talking about. But the Sirius XM and the Hair Nation, and all that stuff. As Jason said, you get a personality on there. There probably is a little more freedom to play some things that they personally like, more so than just following a playlist.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I think Howard Stern. Yeah, these ear things are driving me nuts.
Okay.
Might have been the first nationwide DJ that people actually tuned in to listen to because he got some kind of deal with all the other stations where they just played him. But before that, you sort of fell in love with the personalities that lived in your town.
Right.
Like in LA, there was a guy named Jim Ladd, and there are others. And they're your special people. That's what's hot in your area, and if they play it, it's something you really should consider and maybe go buy it.
It was much more regional at that time, which is why San Antonio became known as the heavy metal capital of the world, is because Lou Roney and Joe Anthony are playing metal bands. And you go to Chicago and it's going to be known as some other type of city. And you go to, New York or LA or Phoenix, Arizona, and they're going to have their own little flavor, back when the DJs actually kind of molded the playlist, so to speak, which is exactly why San Antonio became known as such a hard rock, heavy metal mecca. Yeah. So tell us about the departure of Rick Sanford, because Rick is very obviously a defining part of the Legs Diamond sound. Very distinctive voice, very good singer. It had to be pretty daunting to know that for whatever reason he's leaving the band. So why did he leave? And then what were your thoughts about trying to replace him?
You want to go, Jeff?
Well, we were getting ready to go play in Europe. I think this was around 2005. And we were all trying to get back together and get rehearsals going. And so I called Rick Sanford, and he was always the first choice. Obviously, we wanted to get the band back together. And it was his decision that he felt at that time that he wasn't able to give 100% of his voice to rehearsals, to do another album, and do a tour. And I respect him immensely for his decision because he has a fantastic voice. And there's no question that those songs, for example, Woman, would not be that song if it wasn't for his great vocals.
Exactly.
So we wanted to have him, but he decided that he could no longer do it. And so at that point, we were faced with the fact that, well, the rest of us want to continue playing. And we're still writing songs and we want to play. So what do? And that's when we collectively put it together that we would have no choice but to find another singer so we could further the journey. And I know that there's some people that will make comments about, well, we want Rick Sanford if we're going to watch Legs Diamond. Well, you have to think about how many other bands have had to do the exact same thing. Queen, for example. I mean, who thought you'd be able to replace Freddie Mercury, one of the most iconic singers in the world? AC/DC, Bon Scott, they had to replace him. He was, as I agreed with you in the early part of the show, one of my favorite bands and singers at that time. Journey, Steve Perry quits the band, yet they replace him. Foreigner, you can go on and on and on with bands that at the time had iconic singers who were considered to be the premier singers at that time. And faced with a decision as we either quit or we get a replacement and we continue and we still play the material and the songs that people love. And so it was not a fun decision to make, but we were put in that position that we had no choice. We had to move on. Yeah. And that's where I'm going to let Michael Prince talk more about how we discovered, in this case, John LeVeque.
Let me turn my mic on.
Well, John LeVeque, I'll get him up to speed on this. We played San Antonio, and it was the Legends of Rock tour, and Montrose was the band that played just before us. And John LeVeque was the singer at that time. So after that show, we had filmed part of that. We were looking at possibly doing a DVD, and we were looking at some of the footage. Well, we had footage of Montrose and John LeVeque. So we already knew what he sounded like and how he performed. So he was a front runner right away. But I'm going to let Michael take over on this because, getting the right singer has to blend with his songwriting. And he's a major player on those decisions.
Yeah. Michael, let's have it.
I was going to add just a few things. One, at that time, Rick was living in San Antonio, and he still is. So it became almost impossible to have him come here for 2 weeks or a month, rehearse, maybe learn some new songs if we were going to play any. And he had a job, a normal job like many of us do when we're not being famous on stage. And he didn't want to leave that job. The show we did before that one with Montrose, I think Rick was already in Texas then.
He was living there then at that time, yes.
And so as a band, out of what we were going to make, we had to fly him here, put him in a hotel, rent him a car, and he did a good job. He did a really good job. But it was really Rick's decision in 2005. We've even called him about the new album we're working on, saying, hey, do you want to sing one song? We'll send the track to you. And Jeff's talked to him. He said, no. He goes, I really can't sing anymore. And he can sing, but he means those high notes that we would hope we could have.
Yeah. Well,
and John LeVeque, we videotaped that show. We have it all multi-tracked, 4 cameras. We've never released it. And what we noticed, because we knew Rick was probably not going to do any more shows we had about 1.5 songs of Montrose with John, and Jeff was right here, and we're looking at it going like, man, would we like to have a singer like that? Because he was hitting all the high notes. And so we put out I think Roger put out a little, not an ad, but the word, we're looking for singer. And John Levesque called the next day, and we're going, that's the guy, you know?
Yeah.
So nice guy. Then he moved to Boston.
Well, so that sort of dovetails nicely into the next question, or the obvious question, I guess, is what's the current status of Legs Diamond in terms of possibly a new album or some tour dates? I know San Antonio, you had something on the books for San Antonio, and then COVID knocked that off the map.
Yeah, about 3 times.
Yeah. So let's start with new music. What's on the horizon?
A new album. And it's really my fault that it hasn't been done already. Everybody's ready. I just really wanted to get a couple more Legs Diamond songs, Like a Woman, Like a Rock and Roll Man, not just a short, guitar-y rock and roll song, but something a little bit more epic.
Yeah. And so when is there any timeline for this? When San Antonio wants to know. I'm San Antonio's messenger today. So
Asking for a friend.
yeah, I'm asking for a few million of my closest friends in San Antonio.
The timeline is really before we play our next show. So we don't know when it's going to be, but we know if we have an album out, we can probably do 4 or 5 shows in Texas. We're on Rock Candy Records out of the UK. They would like to bring us there.
Fun label.
Yeah. Derek Oliver runs that thing. He's been a friend of mine.
What's Jeff holding up?
Since
Let's
the
talk about
70s.
what Jeff's holding up real quick.
They've released all our first 6 albums.
Yeah.
Debut
Oh
album.
my
And-
God.
And since I'm sitting
My
in Michael's
address
studio,
is one.
I have some of them.
zero-
Oh wow. So and I
I'll
wanted to
pay for the
point out,
postage. My address is no.
I wanted to point out to people listening and that your albums are very much still available, correct? On your website, is it legsdiamond.com? Is that the site?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're also available on Amazon. In fact, it's easier just to go to Amazon or your local record store and request it. Because if you order it on our website, then I have to take it to the post office. Which I don't. I'll do it.
I get it.
I'm that guy as well, Michael. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jason does the
I know
same
all
job
about
for
that.
his.
Now
They
what
know
he
me.
just said is
know me down
proof that we're not into this for the money. We're into it for
course
just trying to continue the legacy of Legs Diamond and to keep that going.
Yeah.
Here,
Because
here.
that right there was a good advertisement for, we don't care if we make any money. We want you to just, get it.
Yeah.
Hoorah.
And I just
Yes.
wanted people to know that the music is still available. People may think that some of this stuff is out of print, but it is still very much available. And you made the point, Michael, that you're kind of waiting to get an album out to do a tour. But I think I'm going to speak for all of Texas when I say that you'd be welcome back to Texas without any new material at all, and you'd still pull big crowds. So I'm encouraged and happy to know that the band is still active and you are working on new material, but you're one of those bands that, I mean, you could come back tomorrow and sell out Sunken Garden Theater in San Antonio, and it might as well be 1986 all over again. So,
Right, and you
Thanks.
might
Thank you.
get shot.
Very
you might
kind.
get shot if you play the whole new record and like nothing
No.
else.
No, we wouldn't do that.
No,
Yeah.
I know that.
We're probably not going to play anything from the last 3 albums, including a new one, if we put it out. People don't. I'm a fan of Deep Purple, like Jeff is. So when I go see them, what do I want to see? I want to see the songs off the first maybe 4 or 5 albums.
Yeah.
That's it.
yeah.
Jeff wants to hear it, all of it.
Yeah, I actually want to hear the new stuff just because I buy every one of their albums as they come out, and I know every one of their songs because I'm a major geek fan of Deep Purple. But
Love it.
no, we understand. Now,
You and Lars
we say-
Ulrich.
I'm sorry.
You-
When we talk about doing another album, there's something to the fact that, and we're very proud of this, that there's been connoisseur magazines that have listed some of our albums. And we know that there's people out there that do want to hear where we've ended up and where we are now, and the transition of how the band is, migrated through the years in our songwriting. So we do want to do that, but we do know that when we play live, primarily they do want to hear the songs that they grew up listening to. And so we may put in a new song, but maybe one, but we would only do that, and probably not. We'd probably just play the songs that we think that were the top ones that they want to hear.
Yeah.
Well,
What's a common opening number when you guys play live? What's one that seems to rise?
We've had a few. I think lately we've been enjoying starting off with Underworld King.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, what's back in the day, maybe what was one that you rose to the top as a great opener? Let's say you're supporting, like when you're supporting UFO or Kiss or something. Ted
Dio.
Nugent on the Ted Nugent tour. What were you opening with? Do you recall?
We a lot of times what we would do, because there's a transition from Michael playing guitar or playing keyboards. So sometimes we would start with 2 all guitar songs. And so maybe we would start with Satin Peacock or even Stage Fright. And then he would switch to keyboards. So there'd be a limited amount of time in between, the set, the changes in instruments. Or we would start with the keyboard songs and do 2 of those before we went to guitar. And that's where, songs that have a real catchy and infectious beginning and are up tempo, like Underworld King, would come in. But I know we've used back in the day, we'd start with Satin Peacock as well.
Wow.
And after Out on Bail came out, I would say almost from 84 through the 90s, we'd start with Out on Bail.
Yeah.
Because that was sort of like our, hey, we're back. We're out on bail. We finally got out of jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a kick-ass song.
Yeah, it is a great
Nothing will get
rock and
you
roll
your
song.
fist pumping like that song. That's a great opener.
I have some very, very sort of like non sequitur songs that are just stupid, really nerdy questions. Is that okay if I freak out on you guys for a minute? Stage Fright is that, or even Satin Peacock, but are those the guitar tones on those old records, on those songs, on the first record in particular, are those just Les Pauls through Marshalls? Or are they just straight Gibson Marshall? Because that's what it sounds like. And it's that's like this sort of like thing that little did I know in my wee brain would look for.
Yeah.
When you hear Ace Frehley start a song, when you hear Jimmy Page start a song, you want it to be this certain thing. You guys had Pat Travers, same shit. Same shit. UFO, same shit. The beginning of Natural Thing, it makes me think of Stage Fright. Makes me want to go put on Legs Diamond because of this Gibson Marshall kind of thing I'm not describing it. I'm just going, what's the deal, yo? That's Les Paul through Marshall.
I still have the 2 same Les Pauls I bought in the 70s. And it's always been a Marshall, and I'm a rhythm guitar player, so no pedals. No, that's just a waste.
Malcolm Young.
Yeah.
Rhythm. Yeah.
Let me give you two words for you: Malcolm and Young. Yeah, man. Okay, next nerd out. Okay, you ready? Okay. I know this is not true. There was a rumor.
I deny it.
I knew you were going to say that. So does David Lee Roth, apparently. But so being from Corpus Christi, there were rumors growing up, and then I still remember them like they were yesterday, that when you turn over the debut record, you guys standing in the sunshine, there might be a palm tree. I don't recall if there's a palm tree sticking out.
There is.
And
that picture was taken.
Man, I'm good. I remember that shit.
That picture was taken in the parking lot of Capitol Records.
Okay.
That's the backdrop.
That diffuses the rumor that
we're facing a mirror.
I was okay. I was
told. The picture is the mirror that we're looking into with the palm trees behind it. That's the backdrop of the Capitol Records parking lot.
Being from Corpus Christi, there was a small number of us that a few of us actually believed the rumor that photo was taken down in Corpus Christi. We wanted that rumor.
Oh, that's right. It was done in Corpus
true.
Christi. Yeah.
On the bayfront, right across the street from
Oh,
Corpus
yeah.
Christi Coliseum.
Those are the palm trees.
That's called wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think they flew the palm trees in from Corpus Christi for that parking lot.
It was the photographer's
Capitol Records.
idea to put a mirror on a chair, and it was the photographer's dog that was just kind of
Yeah.
hanging out in the
And
picture.
he tried to move the dog, and we said, no, leave the dog. It gives us one more, thing to look at. We thought it was
Sure.
just kind of cool.
But in today's world, if you look at that album cover, that picture you just do it in Photoshop. It would just be, that's a picture from the band. Here's a shot I took in a parking lot of a building. I'm just going to, overlay it. But no, it was a really cool idea.
well, it's for art's sake. When you think about, someone produced that photograph. Someone that literally, this isn't the right word, choreographed that photograph.
Yeah.
They said,
Directed
let's
it.
do this, and I'm going to do this. Okay. And then you shoot a few rolls, and obviously you guys have to go, or the record label, art department is picking that. I think that it's a great introduction to Legs Diamond. When you think about, when you listen to the songs and you turn the record over and you go, oh, well, this is making too much sense. Anyway, I'm done with Jason's nerd corner today here on Talk Louder podcast.
I wanted to touch on one more thing, and then we'll let the guys go. But Michael, I don't think we can have you in the room without noting some of your accomplishments beyond Legs Diamond. If I'm not mistaken, I think you've worked on records you've had some hand in working with Michael Jackson. I want to say Beyonce. I feel like I was interviewing you one time when you were actually working on a Michael Jackson record. It was a phone interview, and you were in California. And I want to say you were looking out your window as we were on the phone having this conversation, and there was one of those god-awful forest fires that you guys have 10 times a month. And is that right? Does this ring any bells?
Sure. Yeah. I worked for Michael for 15 years.
What did you do exactly?
I did all the tour programming starting in 95, and then became like the head tech, and then became the playback tech, which we don't talk about because nobody uses playback. Jason, do you know what playback is?
I actually I don't, but
Is it just tapes?
do. I do. It's just tapes. Yeah.
Tapes.
Kinda.
Backing
Yeah.
tracks.
It's basic. The best way to explain it to a layman is sometimes an album has a choir on it, and you want that choir when you play the song live. So
Right.
you have a little tape machine.
Sure.
The drummers listen to a click, so the
Yeah.
choir comes in at the right time. But that's
Right.
that's all it is. It's supplementing. It's trying to sound like your record.
The
Which-
moral of the story is whatever tracks you have to have a great drummer.
You do. And the funny thing is, since I did all that for Michael and other artists, Don Henley, I always ask the band before we start doing live shows, I go, do you want me to set up a little thing and pull the backgrounds off the record and pull an extra guitar part? I go, nah. And we've always been 100% live. I'd rather keep it that way.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah, there's
good.
something about the
to know.
organic. If you've done about 10 in a row and you're a little shot and you're tired because you're on a dartboard tour and you've been driving all day and your shower sucked or because there hadn't been one, and you have to, oh shit, we're on in 5 minutes kind of a thing, and you're a little ragged, and you sound like you feel but the fans are still happy that you're there playing your songs. The songs don't sing themselves, even if you're choking a little bit.
No, but I remember a time when Robert Plant stopped singing his highest notes. And I wasn't at the concert, But people would talk to me and go, man, he's singing different notes. He's not hitting all his high notes. And I'm going like,
Yeah, he's a human
who
being.
cares? Yeah,
Yeah. He
So-
hit those high notes in 1969.
exactly.
Yeah, Rush didn't break up when Geddy sang low.
No,
Yeah.
So you worked with Michael in this sort of capacity. So it's more of a touring capacity where you're out helping produce the live show. Is that the deal?
live shows. But then I also worked on all the albums starting in 95. And so it became more of a full-time thing. I mean, and
Wow.
I had portable studios, sort of like what you see behind me, but more portable. And if he said, hey, I want to record at the ranch, we'd send a truck up there and I get it all ready, put a mic there and all this fancy stuff that we use in the studios. Did in hotels all over the world.
Wow.
And of course, in real studios.
And he was pretty well known for kind of being in the background. And did you have any interaction with him at all during this time as being part of one of his creative partners, or not?
All the
at
time. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
He called me on the phone out of the
Are we
blue.
still talking about Michael Jackson right now?
Yeah.
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 Okay, I just had to like pinch myself because
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
No,
I
we
was-
didn't beat it. We're still talking about him.
I was sitting right here in the studio and he calls me and we talked on the phone for an hour and a half
Wow.
about nothing in particular.
Yeah.
But, he was cool. One time he called me. I was taking my daughter and her friend to school. And so the phone rings in the car and it's a speakerphone thing. So I answer it. And so we talk and he wants me to start coming up to the ranch and showing him how to play keyboards. I go, all right, when do you want to start? And he goes, next week. Oh, okay. All right, I'll talk to you later. Hang up the phone. And Allie's friend, and she's still friends with her. And Allie's friend goes, was that Michael Jackson? I go, yeah. And I thought to myself, that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was amazing. He was amazing.
That's awesome.
Michael's being modest right now because he was working with Michael Jackson. He's actually worked with a lot of other big names at this point now.
Yeah. So Jeff, give us some
Go
of
ahead
the
and tell
names
him.
if Michael's too modest.
Yeah,
No.
talk for
But
Michael.
it's on him. He's got to say this, but he's always been a very modest person. He's extremely talented, and there's a reason why he was, working at that level. I'll say one thing: when we first started off, early Legs Diamond, Michael was in a different situation than Michael Diamond and I, where we had to still work at Turner's Liquors to, pay our rent. And Michael was in a little bit different and better situation. He didn't sit around.
I was living with my parents.
Well, he was also going
That
back
helps.
to college and taking engineering classes.
That's true.
And so when someone has an opportunity where they can either sit around and do nothing and just wait for something to happen, he was one of these guys that went back to college and took engineering classes and learned how to produce. I know because we actually did one song that he had to write, arrange, perform at the college, and we did. And that was a blast. But he was always learning and doing stuff. So it stand to reason that we'd eventually get gigs working in that capacity with people like Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just incredible, and I wanted listeners and viewers to be aware of, besides your career with Legs Diamond, and that alone would be worthy of recognition. But you've also done some pretty high level stuff with some major pop stars on a just astronomical level.
So I'm going to throw a rippled typhoon into the middle of this, a big wave. Jeff Poole, I just saw a picture of you hanging out with DJ Will.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Like a day
He's,
yesterday or the day before?
It's only a couple of days ago. I think I got my hair tied back in a hat.
Yeah.
I wear like a JBL hat.
Yeah. Are you working? You're at a gig doing something and
No,
DJ
that is my job. Is I actually work for JBL.
Wow.
And
That's huge.
It's a unique situation because it's the only place where somebody like me, we have at the facility in Northridge, we have what we call the Experience Center. People come in and do commercials there. They do live videos. And I have a set of drums that I've set up on the stage, and I'm allowed to go in there and play drums anytime I want. I have full reign of Harman and JBL as the resident musician. And so I'm involved with all the different shows they do. So when people come in, like Achilles Priester, for example, a Brazilian drummer that's just off the charts. He auditioned for Dream Theater. We became really good friends with him coming in there. We did a Make Music Day where I had him come in and play on my drums, and the two of us were fooling around together. There's all kinds of cool people that come in. He came to pick up some speakers that we were going to give to the Rainbow, and I'd already helped him out. And he had a friend of mine. He goes, Jeff doesn't know about this. And he handed him his phone and said, could you take a picture? And then he pulls Diamond is a Hard Rock album out, and he holds it up, and we're taking a picture. And I went, and then he proceeds to tell this guy like a brief history of how many years I played and what I've done. And I'm like,
yep.
This is kind of cool. So
that is the Mr.
working a job.
That is the Mr. William Howell that I know. That is the William Howell that I know. He is
he's awesome. He really is.
He is awesome. Yeah. And I've known him forever and ever and ever. He was a fan of my band Watchtower from the early 80s. Pre-Dangerous Toys. And I remember him when he worked for Metal Blade Records. Then he went to Capitol, and now he's just known as DJ Will. But he's like this walking, as you already know, he's this historian. I think that he knew my wife before I knew my wife, kind of thing. He's really this everybody's buddy kind of thing too. He knows everybody. He loves rock and roll. He is obsessed with music, and thank God.
Well, he's working at the perfect place. He's a DJ at the Rainbow.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, he was awesome.
That's his heaven.
Well, no interview would be complete without mentioning another mutual friend, Harold Harris, and his lovely wife, Teresa.
Yes, which is where we met in person.
Yeah. That's one of their anniversaries.
Correct.
Yeah. Correct. We have him to thank for hooking up this show today. Harold was nice enough to give me Michael's phone number, and I reached out to Michael, and here we are.
Let's work that up a little bit more. So if I'm gonna, this is a half guessing, half maybe true. Harold was stationed in the service in San Antonio at one of the bases there, and there's a lot of bases there.
Killeen.
Is that true?
Killeen, Texas.
Oh, in Killeen. Okay, that's right out. That's closer to where we all are. So
yeah. There's an army base right next to Killeen. I don't know what it is.
Fort Hood.
I think it's the biggest one in the country.
Yeah. So he was a huge fan. There used to be I forget the name of the Renaissance Records. I'm guessing there was a record store there. He was a rock and roll fan. I'm just sort of building the story of Harold Harris that I seem to recall.
Mm-hmm.
And how did he start to follow you or to become friendly with Legs Diamond?
Well, one of the local bars we played, clubs, was the Crazy Horse Saloon in Killeen, Texas.
I've heard of that, of course.
And Harold was there at the very first show. And I don't remember this because as a keyboard player, I'm very busy. And but Harold bought, like, I think shots or beers for the whole band.
Sounds like Harold.
I don't think they ever made it to me. Probably didn't make it to Jeff either. They probably got to Rick.
Yeah.
Stop
Rick.
He's out front most of the time, so yeah.
Yeah, he was right there. But yeah, I mean, Harold's been a friend, and then we found out he could do T-shirts. So for years, we would just call him. He'd meet us at our first gig and give us. Well, sometimes he'd ship them out here, but so he was like a friend, a T-shirt guy. Last time in 2018, Jeff and I the next day went and had like the world's best barbecue.
Unbelievable.
And I saw him this past summer, and I'll be there for 3 weeks in January in Austin. So we're going to hang out a lot.
Are you going to be in town working?
No,
Hopefully not,
Oh,
right?
no,
Not working.
no,
Not working.
not where. Okay.
I'll have my laptop and a little keyboard with me if I get some time for an idea, but we're having grandchild number 2 in Leander.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, congrats.
Well, yeah, we Harold is a friend of mine and Jason's, and we knew that he was friends with you guys, and I guess it really was only a matter of time until we extended the invitation. We're just so glad that you accepted. We appreciate you being on the podcast today. Again, I'm going to speak for all of San Antonio when I thank you for all the great music over the years, all the great concerts over the years, and with that, the memories and the concerts, or I'm sorry, with the songs and the concerts come all the memories. I don't know that there's anybody that grew up in San Antonio during the late 70s through the 80s that doesn't have Legs Diamond songs etched in their brain as part of the soundtrack to some really good times. So thank you guys for all that.
Can I have one other shout out when you mentioned Harold? We have a person, a great friend, John Watson in England, who has been putting together, compiling the Legs Diamond saga. It's about 5,000 pages long. I know that Harold has a copy of it.
Yes.
And not sure if he's printed it out, but I know you could read it if you're visiting him. You can see it. He can pull it up on his computer. And it has facts in there that date from the very beginning and stuff that, and I have a pretty good memory, that I've forgotten about. And he'll have like show bills of shows that I've never seen before. So Harold has a copy of that, but John Watson in England has put together an incredible life's history of Legs Diamond.
Wow. Well, will that be available to the public at some point?
Dogs are out.
It's what he has available right now, I believe, is available in limited, but he's not quite finished. He's on, I think he said he's on his last chapter, and it should be about 5,000. I think he's waiting for our next album, and then he's going to wrap it up, and that'll be the book.
We want to call it our final album. It'll be our final tour. And that's why we're hoping to play more places in America that we've played before and do some dates in the UK and Germany. Without an album, I think we're pretty much just going to be playing a few cities in Texas.
Well,
You're welcome.
Texas will be okay with that. Yeah. I don't know about the rest
here.
of the world, but
So,
yeah, Texas will be happy to hear that.
And we're hoping to get that album out while we're all still 29.
Yeah.
We want to get it in before we hit the big
So-
3-0.
That gives you another 5 years then, right?
Yeah. So we have a little time. Thank you, Yuri.
And Harold is one of the people that says, dude, you guys don't need to do another record. They want to hear all the old stuff. I go, yeah. We know. We know
But
that.
you're a musician. You're a musician and you're creative and you want to, do your thing. So
We still have more stories to tell.
yeah.
well, and you almost feel like you have to. If you write songs, it's kind of what you do. And if you don't, you're just kind of doing this thing. I mean, I had a really bad attitude about it for years about, well, they're just waiting for those 2 very marginal hits so they can relieve the babysitter and go home.
Hey, by the way, wasn't Dangerous Toys supposed to be on one of those
The San
Legs Diamond
Antonio
shows in San Antonio that got
yeah,
postponed because of COVID?
with
Yeah.
you guys and Frank Marino and Stars and everybody. Yeah.
I was really looking forward to Frank Marino. I fortunately got to work with him in the mid 80s on another project I was on. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
So I was really sad to hear that he had a decline because of possible health reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was an incredible. That was turning into Riot, I believe, was on that.
Riot was on that
well.
one as well. Yes.
It started off with Crocus on the bill as
Yeah.
well. That show, the lineup changed like 3 different times.
Yeah.
Angel.
Angel was on the last lineup.
Angel
And they got
was on-
Sebastian Bach to replace Frank Marino, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elita Ford was supposed to be on
was
that
on it.
bill. And
Jeez.
I want to say
Moxie was on it.
Moxie. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a San
And I think
Antonio-
Stars. Oh, no,
Yeah.
Stars was on one of them. They weren't going to
Moxie's-
be on the last lineup.
Moxie, Stars, Riot, Frank Marino, Legs Diamond, Riot.
Sebastian Bach.
Bastian Bach ended up gonna.
He was on the last version
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it. Yes.
Crocus originally.
They were on the first version.
And that
Oh.
tells you right there, you can, if you're playing a show with 4 other bands, you're not going to be able to play any new songs. And if anything,
No.
I think our set time was a hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, ours was like 25 or 30
Jeez.
minutes.
Yeah.
And we were going on at noon. So,
Oh,
I always be like, wow,
Jason's going to go on in his pajamas.
not even going to get to see Legs Diamond because I'm going to be so tired and need of a nap by the time they play. So,
no, we play after nap time. It's in our contract.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
The
good.
writer.
That's good.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for joining us. 16-year-old me can't believe that I'm having a conversation with two of the founding members of Legs Diamond. And again, as I said earlier, thanks so much for all the great music and the memories and the concerts. And hopefully COVID gets behind us and maybe we can get Legs Diamond and Dangerous Toys back on a bill again at Sunken Gardens and I can go relive my childhood memories again.
Well,
Yes, please.
should
That'd
we
be
play
incredible.
with Dangerous Toys or
Broken Teeth.
Broken Teeth?
Well, you know, that's
That's your choice,
I
Jason.
meet people.
Yeah.
Well, it's the promoter's choice. I
Yeah.
feel like Lane Arnold can, thinks he can sell more tickets because of recognition of Dangerous Toys.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that to walk around and go, yeah, Broken Teeth. Michael Prince is a fan.
Big fan.
That's right, man.
I
Yeah.
think we could have Dangerous Toys and Broken Teeth.
Well, then I'm gonna definitely need that nap then.
Yeah.
Maybe two. Yeah.
Takes a lot out. It takes a lot out of me doing that shit.
And
Guys.
we'll do a short Michael Jackson segment in our show.
Ooh,
There you go. Intermission or something.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. We appreciate your
Likewise.
time. And again, thanks for all the great music over the years. And we'll look for that new record and hopefully see you in Texas sometime soon as COVID allows and your schedules allow. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with Jeff Poole and Michael Prince from the Mighty Legs Diamond. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.
Thank you, guys.